Welcome to the Morning Walk with Murty Digital Stroll. What if I told you that cognitive decline, the memory loss, the brain fog, that overall mental slowing we just sort of accept as a normal part of getting older isn't actually an inevitable biological clock ticking down? What if it's actually just, indigestion from your smartphone?
Yeah, that is a pretty radical reframing. And to really understand how we get to that conclusion, we need to introduce the specific framework we're working with today.
Right, exactly.
We are looking at the foundational concepts designed by Murty BVNS, who is, the architect of AIIMS and the mentor of the AIIMS VA Academy.
And for anyone joining us who might be new to these concepts, Project AIIMS is essentially a blueprint for human optimization in an incredibly noisy modern world. And our goal today isn't to just summarize an article for you or read off some research statistics.
No, definitely not.
We are taking the source material and viewing it through the digital prism. So we're applying modern, data-driven context to ancient wisdom to extract what we call the legacy code.
Which really brings us to the core mission of this Gurukul session. Because for a very long time, the deeply ingrained Western perspective has framed aging, specifically cognitive aging, as just a deterministic genetic slide.
Like a disease you just catch.
Right. It's treated as a biological disease you either get or you don't, based largely on your family tree. But the architect's work challenges that entirely. We are exploring Gurukul 2.0 concepts to understand cognitive health through the lens of neuroplasticity, mindful practice, and critically, how we handle the sheer volume of data we consume every single day.
I really want to dive straight into this concept of cognitive and sensory indigestion, because as someone who looks at the world through a digital migration lens, this just makes intuitive sense.
Yeah, it resonates.
When I hear that phrase, my mind immediately goes to a server overload. Think about your laptop or your phone. When you have 50 background apps running simultaneously, you've got push notifications firing, news feeds refreshing, 3 different email accounts syncing.
Yeah.
The processor starts to lag.
The battery drains faster, yeah.
Exactly. The device literally gets hot to the touch. The system just chokes on its own cache.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because calling it indigestion sounds, a bit poetic or new agey. Are we just talking about feeling overwhelmed and needing a nap? Or is my iPhone literally causing physical brain damage?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it is literal, measurable physical damage.
Wow, literal damage.
Yes. If we look at a groundbreaking 2025 study out of AIIMS in New Delhi, we get a really clear look at the actual biological mechanism. The researchers looked at elderly populations who are facing high levels of chronic stress and constant sensory input. And what they found was that being constantly on causes actual neuroinflammation.
So the brain's chemical alarm bells are just ringing continuously.
Right.
Wait, so it's not a metaphor? The brain is actually swelling up?
Yes, physically swelling. The body releases specific inflammatory markers. And these are proteins with names like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. In a healthy scenario, these proteins rush in to heal a sudden injury, right? Like a sprained ankle.
Right, they do their job and leave. Exactly. But when your brain is constantly stressed by a never-ending feed of information, these proteins stay elevated. They cause chronic swelling. And as a result of that panic state, the brain starts overproducing amyloid beta and tau proteins.
Which, anyone who has read even a little bit about Alzheimer's disease has heard of amyloid and tau. They're the boogeymen of cognitive decline.
They absolutely are.
They clump together, form plaques that essentially suffocate brain cells. Are you saying those plaques are actually caused by sensory overload?
What the AIIMS study highlights is that these proteins are essentially biological waste products. When neurons fire, they create metabolic trash. And normally, when you sleep or enter a state of deep relaxation, the brain runs its maintenance protocols.
It clears the cache.
Exactly. It flushes that trash out. But because our modern Western diet of constant digital connectivity never allows the brain to fully power down, the garbage trucks just never come. So the waste piles up into those toxic plaques.
That is terrifying. If you're listening to this right now while driving in traffic, checking your smartwatch, and mentally planning your afternoon meeting, you are actively preventing your brain from running its cleaning protocols. The garbage is just piling up on the street.
And that is exactly where the Gurukul 2.0 practices prove their biological worth.
Yeah.
Because the AIIMS study didn't just observe the damage. They actually implemented a 12-week yoga and meditation intervention. And they found that these practices act as the literal digestive enzymes for the brain.
They act as enzymes.
Yes, the participants who engaged in the practice saw a massive drop in those inflammatory markers, the IL-6 and TNF-alpha. It simply activated the brain's waste clearance system.
Okay, so if cognitive indigestion is the brain suffocating under the weight of unprocessed data, then deep mindful practice is the biological mechanism that finally digests it. That reframes everything for me. It means cognitive decline isn't just the clock ticking, it's the garbage piling up, because we literally forgot how to process our experiences. But, I mean, if my brain is already clogged with this amyloid waste from years of doom scrolling, am I permanently damaged? Can we actually reverse the damage and rebuild the hardware?
The legacy code tells us that we absolutely can. And it relies on the principle of neuroplasticity. We often hear the phrase, the brain acts like a muscle.
Right.
Now, it's not literally made of muscle tissue, but it strictly follows the law of muscular hypertrophy. Use it or lose it. It physically adapts to the demands placed upon it.
I've got to challenge that a bit with some of the data provided in the source material. I'm looking at the 2024 UCLA research by Levetsky and colleagues.
Oh, yeah, the Kundalini yoga study.
Yeah. They took a group of older women who were at high risk for Alzheimer's and split them into two groups. One group did a Kundalini yoga intervention, and the other group did standard memory training. Now, from a pure software patch perspective, if I am losing my memory, the most logical fix is to practice memory games. Right.
That would be the standard assumption.
Doing Sudoku, memorizing lists of words, cognitive puzzles. Why did the yoga group actually outperform the group doing targeted memory exercises? Just feels so counterintuitive.
It does seem counterintuitive until you separate the software from the hardware. Standard memory training is purely a software patch. It teaches you slightly better strategies to utilize the degraded hardware you currently have.
Oh, okay. I see.
But yoga, through its specific combination of controlled breath work, complex physical movement, and deep, sustained mental focus, actually forces an upgrade to the hardware itself.
What does that actually look like inside the skull? Like, how does moving your body and breathing slowly grow brain tissue?
So when you engage in these deep integrative practices, you force the body to pump highly oxygenated blood directly into the brain. And at the same time, the meditative focus lowers the stress hormones that usually restrict that blood flow.
Right, you're opening the pipes.
Exactly. This optimal environment stimulates the release of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as like miracle grow for your neurons. The UCLA study showed that while memory training had some mild cognitive benefits, the Kundalini yoga group experienced a literal reversal of biological aging signatures.
Reversing the signatures, meaning their immune cells actually behaved like younger cells.
Yes, their immune cells showed an increase in anti-inflammatory cytokines. But even more remarkably, the MRI scan showed that the yoga group promoted actual physical tissue growth in the hippocampus.
The hippocampus is the brain's primary memory center, so the physical volume of their memory hard drive actually increased.
Exactly. And the memory training group did not produce those structural changes. And this isn't an isolated finding either. The legacy code points to several foundational studies that prove this mechanism.
Like what?
Well, for instance, Dragansky's famous 2004 study. They took adults who had no idea how to juggle and taught them over 3 months. When they scanned their brains, the physical gray matter in the mid-temporal area, that's the part responsible for processing visual motion, had visibly expanded.
That is wild. They literally built new real estate in their brains just by learning a complex new motor skill.
Yeah. And just as importantly, when the researchers told them to stop juggling for 3 months, that new brain tissue shrank back down. Use it or lose it.
Wow.
Similarly, Erickson's 2011 study showed that moderate aerobic exercise, which shares a lot of the physiological cardiovascular benefits of active yoga, actually reversed age-related hippocampal loss by 1 to 2 years in older adults. It is entirely about creating systemic structural adaptation.
So it's a difference between memorizing a map of a city and actually laying down new roads. When you engage the mind and the body simultaneously in these Gurukul 2.0 practices, you are laying down new neural highways. You are expanding the total bandwidth of your mental system so it can process reality without getting overwhelmed.
Perfectly said.
But let's look at how this scales. Upgrading an individual node in the network is great for me personally. But does this Gurukul 2.0 concept scale across an entire system? If I optimize my own cognitive processing, does that actually protect the people around me, or is this just a solo endeavor?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we start to see the formation of what Murty calls a cultural immune system. We have extensive data on intergenerational resilience that proves cognitive health is not meant to be a solo endeavor at all.
Like the blue zones.
Exactly. Places like Okinawa in Japan or Sardinia in Italy. These are regions with the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world, where people regularly live past 100 and stay incredibly sharp.
And what's their secret? I mean, it's not like they have better genetics than the rest of the planet.
No, their genetics are totally standard. What these communities have in common is that they don't just have isolated individuals retreating to a quiet room to do 10 minutes of meditation on a smartphone app.
Right.
They have deeply rooted generational traditions of movement, mindfulness, and intense social connection. The practice is communal. It is a shared operating system. And the result of that shared system is drastically lower rates of dementia and cardiovascular disease compared to the modern Western world.
Because it's baked into the culture. You don't have to exhaust your own willpower to remember to be mindful. The community naturally regulates your stress levels for you.
And we can actually measure the biological impact of that shared regulation, even in moments of extreme crisis. Going back to that 2025 AIIMS study in New Delhi, the researchers looked at a very specific, highly stressed population, the caregivers of Alzheimer's patients.
Oh, caregiver burnout is a massive, well-documented issue.
It's huge. These family members live in a state of chronic, high cortisol vigilance. But the study found something remarkable. When the caregivers practiced yoga alongside the patients, the caregivers themselves experienced a 30% reduction in their own caregiver burden and stress markers.
A 30% reduction just from sharing the practice. That implies that our nervous systems are like Wi-Fi enabled. We are constantly picking up on the signals of the people around us. If I am stressed, my cortisol actually spikes the cortisol of the person sitting next to me.
That is the biological reality, yeah. The East historically treated aging and cognitive health as a shared, holistic practice for this very reason. The modern Western paradigm disrupted this entirely.
By making it all about the individual.
Right. It isolated the individual, stripped away the communal practices, and treated aging as a solitary medical disease to be managed with pills in a clinic. But modern science is validating that shared generational practice serves as a vital, holistic buffer. When you regulate your own nervous system, you actively lower the ambient inflammatory stress of your entire family unit.
Which means taking the time to process your own sensory data is actually an act of community service. If my system is running cool and efficiently, I'm not radiating heat onto the servers racked right next to me. I love that.
It's a great way to look at it.
But we have to address the ultimate stress test for this entire framework. The ultimate enemy of any hardware is time. Does the brain's ability to rewrite its own code eventually expire? We've talked about older adults, maybe people in their 60s or 70s, but how far does this neuroplasticity really go?
The evidence shows that neuroplasticity does not stop. Even at incredibly advanced ages, the biological machinery required to rewire the brain remains intact. The caveat, however, is that it requires incredibly active, intense, and consistent effort.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we love the idea of mindfulness in the modern world, but usually we want it to be a passive download. We want the easiest possible path.
The quick fix, yeah.
Exactly. So I have to ask, can I just casually listen to a meditation track on Spotify before bed at age 90 and expect to reverse my brain age?
The hard truth is no. You cannot passively digest decades of sensory overload. To understand the level of effort required, we really have to look at a fascinating 2025 study by Kalk and colleagues. They utilize multimodal neuroimaging to look at the brains of lifelong meditation experts, some of whom were over 90 years old.
Scanning the brains of 90-year-old master meditators, what did they find?
The MRI scans revealed that the brain age of these practitioners was 10 to 15 years younger than their chronological age.
That is unbelievable.
When researchers measured their cortical thickness, which is the outer layer of the brain that usually thins out as we age, and the integrity of their white matter, which acts as the communication cables between different brain regions, it physically resembled the brains of people in their 70s.
To have the physical brain structure of a 75-year-old when you are 90 is staggering. But you're saying they didn't get there by accident or by taking it easy?
Not at all. The researchers noted that this level of cognitive preservation requires profound, high-intensity effort. In the AIIMS study we discussed earlier, the intervention required daily 60-minute sessions. It is a literal workout for the neural pathways.
So the brain will only adapt if you force it to adapt.
Yes. It demands active willpower to tune out the endless distractions and do the heavy lifting of processing your reality, especially as the biological system naturally slows down with age.
It's the ultimate execution of the use it or lose it principle. If you want a resilient brain, you have to continually give it a reason to be resilient. You have to actively engage your willpower.
And that is the ultimate empowerment of the Gurukul 2.0 philosophy. You are not just a passenger waiting for a genetic timer to go off. You are the architect of your own cognitive reserve, provided you are willing to embrace the practice.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening digital stroll. Let's briefly synthesize the ground we've covered today. By looking through this digital prism, we've migrated away from a very outdated deterministic view of aging. We don't have to look at cognitive decline as an inevitable disease.
No, not at all.
Instead, the legacy code shows us that it's largely a manageable lifestyle and sensory integration challenge.
Exactly. We've seen the biological proof that the brain is a highly adaptable plastic system. Whether you are 40, 60, or over 90 years old, your brain can continuously rewrite its own code, grow new physical tissue in the memory centers, and clear out toxic biological waste. But you have to provide the environment for it to do so.
You have to provide the digestive enzymes of mindfulness, movement, and deep focus. Because the core system error of our modern age isn't that we know too little. The problem is that we know too much. We are bombarded by too much, and we process entirely too little. We are starving for true integration in a world that is drowning in information.
Which leaves us with a critical question to consider as you go about the rest of your day. If our cognitive decline is truly driven by sensory indigestion and a failure to process our experiences, what piece of digital junk food, what constant source of sensory noise in your daily routine do you need to start fasting from today to give your brain the space it needs to finally digest your life?
That is the perfect thought to walk away with. Thank you for joining us on this Gurukul session. Keep questioning your defaults, keep tending to your mental hardware, and we highly encourage you to keep seeking wisdom on your next digital stroll. Until next time.